Yo, what's up, Sweden? Welcome back to another reaction. Today I'm reacting to the animated history of Sweden, part 1. Okay, if it interests me, I'm gonna react to the part 2. If it's rich in history, and let's get into it.
Deep in the valleys of rivers and lakes lay the lands of forest and frost, which the Northmen call.
Okay, let me help you guys put Danish subtitle, because I think the Swedish subtitle, because a lot of people said you guys speak English, but I'm gonna put the subtitle just in case.
Paul Uppsala. The sagas speak of Odin's family who ruled there as kings. They speak of Frey who built a great temple and ruled the land from his throne on the
Wait, are you serious? Odin is Swedish. It's like of Swedish descent.
hill, of Fjolnir who drowned in a vat of mead while feasting in Sealand. The pages of the sagas then tell of Sviptir, who vowed to find Asgard, traveling far and wide for many years. In his travels, he found in Svithawid a large stone embedded in the ground, with a dwarf at its entrance, luring him inside to Asgard. Sviptir entered the stone, bound by the charm of the dwarf, and was never seen again. In the quiet nights, the Northmen hear the scurry of elves, which still cling to the...
Wait. Is this the green sky? The green sky that comes like in a while? Wait, guys, I can't really keep up with this history. I gotta put it on English, I'm sorry. How to translate to English? I mean, you guys know the history already, so it's about me. It's not about you guys. So let's go.
Seen again. In the quiet nights, the Northmen hear the scurry of elves, which still cling to the undergrowth since the ancient days, and the trolls hiding in the forests and mountains. The Northmen fish and farm by day, and tell tales of heroes and monsters by night.
This sounds like a fairy tale to scare kids. The man we don't speak about.
Scandinavia has been settled by Neolithic people for a very long time. But history as we know it really starts with the settlement of the area by the Indo-Europeans who produced the Nordic Bronze Age. With the collapse of the Roman Empire, many Germanic Scandinavians raided and settled further south in the vacuums of the old Roman provinces. The tribes that stayed developed the Proto-Nordic culture, an Iron Age society contemporary with the Great Migration period. The Proto-Norse society began mostly in the Straits of Kattegat before spreading further into Scandinavia, with an economy based on farming, fishing and trade.
Wait, is Sweden like really rich in agriculture? I mean, like with the land and everything. I don't know what the climate is like in Sweden, so help me in the comment section.
In the far north, the land was inhabited by a different ethnic group called the Sami, a Uralic people native to the Arctic region. But by far what we know most about prehistoric Sweden comes from the Viking Age. One theory for how it began was a sudden explosion in population, and this larger society started competing with each other for very limited farmland. Food became more scarce, and soon Scandinavians were importing a lot more food through trade. How did they pay for this food? With raiding, of course. So, with their expertise as warriors and sailors, they began a tradition of raiding coastal towns and villages in the Baltic Sea to find...
Like what when they talk about raid, just raid for food, not like to, I don't know, disperse people, like kill people or something. I don't.
fund their drastically imbalanced imports. This, however, was deeply rooted in culture and tradition, because for a Viking the greatest honor was to die in battle, with sword or axe in hand, so that Odin himself would take him up to his great hall in Valhalla.
Valhalla. Okay, so Valhalla is like a Nordic culture, which means like Sweden, Norway, and like Denmark, the Scandinavians, right? Like they're not.
Vikings would raid and trade in lands as far away as Constantinople, where they were prized mercenaries called Varangians. Some Vikings from Rus, a land called the Rus, would go on to found our modern concept of Russia by ruling over East Slavic tribes in Kiev and Novgorod. The raiders that returned to Sweden came back rich in gold, silver, and slaves. Swedish Viking nobility tells of the legendary Yngling dynasty, said to trace its roots to Odin himself. But for many, the first leader recognized by...
Sorry, does Odin really exist, or like it's a myth? Cause I feel like, I don't know, man. So help me. Did Odin really like exist, or like it was just...
of the Icelandic sagas was Björn Ironside, son of legendary Danish warrior Ragnar Lothbrok. Ironside probably ruled what is today Upland, but in Norse tradition, most of the power laid with the Jarls, who collected taxes and enforced the law in their counties. By the early Middle Ages, Sweden was split between two rival powers, the Swedes and the Goths, who resisted more than a figurehead
The Goths. What are the Goths?
king for a lot longer than the Danes and the Norwegians. True unification would only come with Eric the Victorious, who introduced conscription, and Olaf Skjøtkonung, who adopted Christianity. Norse paganism would continue side by side with the new religion, until the former had mostly faded away by the 1300s, with Christian crucifixes slowly replacing Thor's hammer. The territories of Svealand and Gotaland seem to have been united
So
officially
right now,
by
like, what dominates Sweden? Is it Christianity or like paganism? Which one? Because I hear people losing their culture, man, all in the name of like a foreign. I don't know, man. Personally, because it's something so evident in Africa, like people just forget the root, to forget what you used to be, and just adopt the white man's culture. It's crazy.
the rule of King Sverker I. But the newly united and newly Christianized kingdom was contested for rule by the House of Erik and the House of Sverker for the next century. In addition, Swedish kings fought wars with Denmark and Norway, whose realms and families were closely linked to their own. It is during this century
So there
too
was a time Norway, Denmark, and Sweden were fighting. Damn.
the counties of Värmland, Jernbaraland, and Hälsingland became more closely tied to the Swedish kingdom, as well as areas settled in Finland called Esterland. Swedish power in the eastern Baltic would only continue to increase, even launching crusades to unconverted Finnish tribes. The regent under the last king from the House of Erik was a man named Birger Jarl, who had his son ascend to the throne in an election in 1250. Birger Jarl founded the city of Stockholm by building a fortress on the old Viking settlement at the link between Lake
Stockholm is Sweden's capital, eh?
Mälaren and the Baltic Sea. This would come to be Sweden's center of trade and government, and eventual cultural capital. King Magnus Ladulus issued the Ordinance of Elsner in 1230, establishing a nobility and feudal levy, drastically increasing the small kingdom's power. They would go on to settle the Gulf of Bothnia and establish a fur trade monopoly with the Sami. When Magnus IV inherited the throne of Norway in 1319, he was elected the king of Sweden. When Magnus IV
Magnus Eriksson
inherited the throne of Norway in 1319, he was elected the king of Sweden in the Convention of Oslo in the same year, making him king of both entities. But he was then kicked out by the nobles and replaced with Albert of Mecklenburg, and then he was in turn kicked out and replaced by Margaret of Denmark. By this point, Swedish nobles, fed up with the power struggles and eager to counter the trade monopoly of the Hanseatic League in the Baltic Sea, met in Kalmar to sign a joint personal union by which Margaret's nephew, Eric of Pomerania, was crowned king of all three domains, calling it the Kalmar Union. Although the union brought great riches and prestige
So
to
you're saying there was a time in history where Norway, Sweden, and Denmark were like one place?
Scandinavia, it was controlled almost exclusively politically and economically by Denmark, the far more powerful of the three kingdoms, from their capitals at Roskilde and Copenhagen.
Damn.
A strong sense of regionalism developed around this time, with Swedish upper class viewing themselves as separate from Dano-Norwegians. A separatist party began to grow around a noble called Sten Sture the Younger, and during the coronation of Christian II of Denmark and Norway, the Swedish delegates refused him as king. Christian would then conquer Sweden by force, and after executing more than 100 nobles in Stockholm, sparked a rebellion. The rebels rallied around a noble.
Wait.
100 nobles in Stockholm sparked a rebellion. The
Damn, Denmark.
rebels rallied around a noble called Gustaf of the House of Vasa. The Swedish War of Liberation lasted just 2 years, with Gustaf crushing the
What do you mean just 2 years? Imagine 2 years of constant fighting. It's not just.
Dano-Norwegian troops and loyalists to Christian II. In 1523, he was crowned King of Sweden, and in the Treaty of Malmö, the Kalmar
Malmö is Sweden as well.
Union was split in two, the Kingdom of Denmark-Norway and the Kingdom of Sweden.
So Sweden was on its own.
Sweden was now a new kingdom with a brand new royal house, and circulating in this kingdom were new technologies and ideas of progressivism. The new printing press was spreading the romantic works of the Renaissance, as well as the works of Protestants in Germany.
Martin Luther
Change
King.
was in the air, and it was now clear that Sweden was on the cusp of a glorious new future. The middle class became obsessed with innovative ideas and provocative thought, an explosion of intellectual thought, with a university opening up in Uppsala.
Aw.
And innovation is something almost all of us can get behind, with new technologies and infrastructure dedicated to bringing us to an ever more interconnected world. But unfortunately, that means we live in the age of the password. And if you're like me and have an email inbox full of reset forgotten password links,
Nah, that was a good advert. Is that all? I guess. Okay. Okay, I feel like Sweden is actually really rich in history. I can't wait to watch the part 2 of what animated history of Sweden. Let me know if you guys want a part 2, and if there's something you would like I got confused with and you want to correct my knowledge of it, put it in the comment section. Yeah, till next one. Peace out.